everyone. Welcome to Beautiful Minds channel. Hi, Berta.
Hi, Sabrina.
How are you?
Great. A bit nervous, but great. Delighted to be here and to try this out.
Yes. So, this is quite new actually. We don't normally podcast together.
Well, we did meet through a podcast, so we'll give you that. That was about, a year and 3 months ago? It's mad.
That's correct. And then after a nice lunch, we decided to work together. And yeah, we wanted to let you know a little bit about what's going on behind the curtains of Beautiful Minds, what have we been up to, and just geek around a little bit.
Yep, that's right. We're gonna give this a go, and if you benefit from these discussions, if you want to hear and or see us more, then do let us know, and we'll be happy to try to do this on camera as well. We do it all the time off camera, but we can try to do it on camera as well.
Definitely. So today we wanted to talk about inclusion, which is kind of like a big topic for us, right?
Yes, it's a word that, first of all, gets thrown around everywhere all the time, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also a word that we talk about a lot in Beautiful Minds, and we'd love to share with you some of our thoughts, our opinions on it.
Yeah, definitely. So, what does inclusion mean? Because, as Berta said, everyone is talking about inclusion in all kind of settings, schools, work. Everyone needs to be inclusive. We know that it's good to be inclusive, but what does it mean, and why is it connected to neurodivergence? Right?
Yes, it's a big topic, and during some of our trainings, I started sharing with our trainees my opinion that in an ideal world we wouldn't need to have inclusion. I always have a few, and sometimes not only a few, raised eyebrows when I say this. But just let me explain what I actually mean. I think in an ideal world, everyone's needs would be met by default, and like there would be a world where we wouldn't need special accommodations by the design. Everyone's needs would be met. Just to bring it to a very plastic or concrete example. If we had a world where there wouldn't be stairs and we'd only have ramps and elevators, everybody would be able to get everywhere at any floor of any building. The moment we introduce stairs, the stairs are only accessible for those who can walk and climb the stairs. So we're excluding those in wheelchairs, those who have any other physical challenges that do not allow them to use the stairs. So similarly, in a world where we wouldn't need inclusion, everyone's needs would be met. And we wouldn't need this kind of special accommodation. Now, obviously, we don't live in an ideal world, but we can do a lot of things to make the environments much more accommodating for a significantly higher number of people, children, than now.
Yeah, and I think that you hit a really good point there when you mentioned the word environment, because in all of our trainings, we keep talking about the importance of change the environment
Yeah.
instead of the person. So, what do we mean by that? This goes far beyond being neurodivergent or having to disclose. Whereas if you are autistic and you might need certain sensory accommodations, so basically, if we design the environments, keeping everyone's needs in mind and making it as flexible as possible, as changeable as possible, we will be meeting everyone's needs, and we will be creating what we believe it's a true inclusive environment, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I think the word flexibility is key there. If we try to design a one size fits all type of anything for that matter, we won't achieve anything. If we design things in mind, thinking of how can they be flexible, how can everything from lighting to sound to seating, just to give a few examples, how can these be flexible and allow for the full usage of a certain object or of a certain room, of a certain environment, things would be much easier. Unfortunately, we've been taught, and a lot of adults, are very set in using things in one way and one way only. And I'll just give a simple example. Like my daughter is she's ADHD and autistic, and it's very difficult for her to sit on the chair the way you and I sit now. So she keeps asking me, she comes from school and she keeps asking me, Mom, why cannot I just turn the chair around and sit on it while leaning on the seat back? It's a position that I could focus in much more. And in fairness, I don't have an answer for her. Like, it's a chair, it's sitting. Um, it's something so simple. Like, yes, I could go in, and if I talk to her teacher, I could get that into her educational plan. But it shouldn't be that deep. It should be, if that would be a fully inclusive classroom, every child would be able to sit on any chair in any position they'd feel comfortable, and that would facilitate their learning.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And when sorry, while I was listening to that story, two things came to my mind. The first one is the word creativity. And in this case, obviously, we are neurodivergent and we are very creative in terms of how we, connect with the world around us. And in that case, why is there only one way of using a chair? Why are we talking only about one way of using a chair? Why only one way is accepted?
And in fairness, I don't even know if that's something that this particular teacher told them, you can only use the chair. But it's the message that is being sent by everyone needs to sit properly, that properly.
Yeah.
And by not allowing kind of, I don't know, maybe moving around while the teacher explains
Yeah.
something. I don't know if and I think that's part of the problem when we just try to put band-aids and just comes with solutions to specific problems. If we don't change the mindset, if we don't go behind, and if we don't create the whole environment in a way that is conductive of this accepting of this creativity, then everything else is just a patch on a highly bleeding wound.
Yeah.
I hope that's making sense.
And then, no, it is absolutely. And then it's so tiring having to go there as the teacher, deal with your child's frustration at home, trying to get the meeting that it will only last 5 minutes because don't get me wrong, they have a lot of work to
Yeah.
do, right?
Yeah.
They're really busy professionals. And then it feels awkward because then there's also the guilt of having to ask for accommodations. Like, for example, I'm autistic, ADHD, and gifted, and obviously, the world is making me disabled sometimes, right? So, for example, I fly quite often, more than I would like to be honest. So going to the airport for me, it's a sensory nightmare, right? So there is where I use my
The sunflower
the
lanyard.
sunflower lanyard scheme. I don't know if you're aware of that, hidden disabilities. And even though I get the accommodation I need, I still need to ask them to, open a specific gate for me to go into a specific line. And I get the looks of other people. I get the looks of other people. And I'm sure they're thinking, hey, you don't look disabled, right? Because you're a grown
Because
up.
you're cool the way you are.
But and I feel guilty. I feel guilty. And actually, last time I went to the airport, I was like, you know what? I don't want to go to the trouble of asking the person in security, just can you just get this a door open for me. So I was in the, in the like regular, I was queuing there with all the people. I started to get like really overwhelmed. And this guy, my angel, that day saw me. He was from the airport. He was a staff member. He came to me. He was like, "What are you doing there? You're wearing the sunflower lounger." And he took me out of there. But actually, the only reason why I was there is because I didn't feel like getting through the whole trouble of asking for this accommodation. Whereas it is there for me, fair play,
Yeah.
Dublin Airport. Um, we're really happy about that, but still, it feels
Yeah.
awkward,
Yeah.
and the kids sometimes feel like that as well.
I think that's an important thing. Like, if we as grown up, confident, competent adults feel that reluctance to ask for accommodation,
Mm-hmm.
kids, in when they automatically are in there are kids in a classroom, there's no way of putting it. They they feel that pressure of the authority, and they do not want to be the ones, either because of their peers or just because they're not comfortable to
Yeah.
advocate for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then what this leads to is a fatigue that shouldn't be there, and them associating school and the learning environment with something that is uncomfortable for them. And if I go back to my daughter's example, she loves learning. She's
Mm-hmm.
such a curious mind. However, I can see her love for learning diminishing
Yeah.
because the classroom is not the best environment for her. And we love the
Absolutely.
school, and we think there's so much goodness into her, and that's why we're taking a very intentional decision not to homeschool. And that's not my decision as a mom, but it's a constant discussion with my daughter, and she
Mm-hmm.
wants to be in school. And in the same time, we're so aware of what it's costing her as an individual, and also our family relationship, because once she comes home, she's much more tired, she cannot engage with other activities, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, there is an emotional weight there from, asking for accommodation, for feeling like the one, the odd one out,
Yeah.
actually. And children in that age, particularly, they all want to belong. We all want to belong, but specifically children,
Yeah.
right? So you don't want to be the odd one out. You don't want to feel like you are questioning authority in that moment. It's really awkward, and it takes a toll on you. And you can see that when once they come back home, like they're all over the place and they're exhausted.
Exactly. And you know what's for me, even more intriguing and in a way upsetting, is that what we want, and this inclusive environment that we are asking for, would actually make life so much easier for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
What we would, or some of our suggestions, for example, for the classrooms, because we ended up, no matter what we do, we end up talking about kids. But these,
We cannot help it.
yes, exactly. So all these suggestions would make life more enjoyable and more pleasant and easier, and both for the teachers and for the other children. Just as an anecdote, I also run a crash, and my team there got ear defenders, and we just put the ear defenders, in a box together with other sensory tools, and we gave access to everyone, to everyone. Like, they were just there as a tool for anyone who wants to use it. And our observations over a whole month of consistent observation, we've noticed that the neurotypical children actually used the ear defenders significantly more than the four autistic children that we had in there. And because they're 3 to 5 year olds, there's very little bad habits that they've developed, and they were just going around their days, and when they needed a bit of peace and quiet, they would take their ear defenders. And it was so lovely to see, like, a 4.5 year old taking their ear defenders and going and coloring a page while their colleagues were singing, a song with the class, just because that's what they needed in that moment. And
Yeah.
because, they were a bit more mature, they wanted some tabletop activities, and that's what worked for them. Like, imagine having this at larger scale, how much easier life would be.
And hey, guys, just to let you know and remind you all, we all have sensory systems. we all
Are
have
you
sensor.
sure,
We
Sabrina?
all have sensory needs, and we all have nervous systems that process all the sensory input. Just just to throw it out there.
Okay, so then I'm gonna challenge you, and I'm gonna throw the ball and the discussion in a little bit of an other direction.
Mhm.
So if you say we all have sensory needs and this is for everyone, does that mean we're all a little bit autistic?
Oh, not at all. Not
So
at all.
can
No,
can
definitely.
you clarify then a little bit
Yeah.
about, okay, why is it not okay to say we're all a bit autistic? And yet we have this thing that, these accommodations or these solutions would help us all.
Fair question. To be honest here, like obviously we all have nervous systems and we all have sensory systems, but the key is how we process that information, right? So obviously we have different sensitivities, and as I like to explain this, it's like you have to imagine that you have a sensory cup inside you, right? So your sensory cup is going to have different sizes, right? So whereas maybe for when it comes to sounds, your sensory cup it's really small, so you will need like not so much sound just to realize that you're getting sensory input. Whereas some people might have that sensory cup much bigger, and they can cope with a lot of sensory input when it comes to sounds. So obviously, the way we autistics process the sensory information is different, and it's not just different in the spectrum as such, but different to each person, to each autistic person, right? And even depending on what that sensory input is, your reaction, your response is going to be different. For example, I cannot, and when I say I cannot, I'm not exaggerating here. I cannot go to the supermarket without my loops, right? But I I I love concerts. So, last summer I was at the Alanis Morissette concert with my daughter. We were both wearing ear defenders, and I got to enjoy because there is a emotional relationship with between that music and myself, right? And the lyrics and everything, all the memories that sensory input is bringing me, it's giving me joy. So that's why I can put up with it.
Okay.
I don't
Well,
know if that's.
no, that makes complete sense for me, and I'd also, just to add and correct me if I'm wrong, we when we give these examples, we kind of tend to limit them at sound or lights, which are very individual kind of elements and
Yeah.
very separated things. But if we think about a neurodivergent person, whether autistic or ADHD, they are a sensory human being who sees, hears, feels
Hmm.
external and
Internal,
internal
yeah.
at the same time. So when we talk and when we define an autistic person as a person who has a much more sensitive nervous system, we need to understand that all this input is at the same time, all the time, different than one of a typical person,
Hmm.
which can lead to sometimes fatigue, sometimes overwhelm, and there is no too little break in a day, in an ordinary day.
Hmm.
And I think that's why we're not all a little bit autistic. We might have one sensitivity or we might have another sensitivity. Whereas when we talk about an autistic person, there are several going on at the same time all the time.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
Does that?
definitely. Yeah, yeah, makes total sense. And obviously, the neurology of the brain is different itself. So, we're talking about different wiring there,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
It's not only on autistic people, it's also ADHDers, gifted, like, I don't quite remember exactly the numbers at the moment, but from 90 to 95% of autistic people have a sensory, what it's calling, we're going to do air quotes here, a sensory processing disorder. In ADHD, we're talking about 50 to 55%, and in giftedness, we are talking about 30 to 35%. So, those numbers are,
And those are the official numbers. We all know that when it comes to research of the neurodivergent population, the numbers are usually significantly higher than the ones published.
yes.
But hopefully, 5 years from now, we'll have this chat and we'll have much more accurate and up to date research than we have now.
Hopefully, and hopefully those researchers are going to be neurodivergent
Yes.
as well.
Or if not, incredibly accurate in their work.
Yes, definitely. So another thing that I wanted to kind of like talk about, coming back to the inclusion thing.
Okay, thank you so much for going with me down that rabbit hole.
No
we
worries.
can come out. We love our rabbit
I
holes.
love sensory processing
Yes.
talk. But yeah, while we are doing our trainings about inclusion, equity, and all that, we get this thrown to us a lot. And, people said, okay, this all sounds great, sounds lovely, but we don't have the budget. We don't have the funding. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I hit a nerve there.
Yes, because I think, first of all, I think it's a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
We have to say, unfortunately, for now in Ireland, there is a funding and a budget issue when it comes to, I dare to say, every educational setting.
Yeah.
Yes, there is one.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate the word, but I'm trying to actually remove it from my vocabulary. Yes, there is this funding issue. And there is a lot that we can do without needing money.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say if everyone would do everything that can be done without additional money, we would have more than 50% of our problems solved.
Mm-hmm.
I'd dare to say much more, but let's be conservative. And that's the bit that we want to encourage and empower, the teachers, the professionals, the early years, the carers, the parents that we work with to do. Those things that do not require additional money.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not go into that. Now, these things, they require something else, something that sometimes it can be harder to get than money. And that's changing our old ways of doing things, changing our mindset, a lot of personal development, working with ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of understanding and believing that what we think it's true for us might not be true for the person next to us. And it's not easy. And as someone who's been on this road for quite a few years now, it's as cliche as it sounds, it is a journey. It's never about arriving. It's a constant work with ourselves and with the ones around us. But damn, does it worth it once you're on it.
Definitely. And yeah, it is a lot of mind, like changing your mindset. It's a lot of work in terms of personal development, and also to dare to be different and dare to be creative when it comes to finding solutions. There is always another way, and we know that for sure. And even for companies, and for corporates, like, I'm more than happy, and I feel super lucky that I could say that I have a job where my own needs are being met in all kind of levels. And Berta, does it really cost more money to do that?
No, because if it did, we wouldn't have it anyway. So I can definitely say it doesn't cost money. What it costs bravery, and it sometimes can be, it asks for a lot of creativity. Like, we really need to sit down, and we do a lot of times, and discuss, and sometimes there can be uncomfortable conversations, but as long as we are approaching them with curiosity and wanting to get to a solution that works for everyone, you can find it. It's all a matter of understanding what the needs are.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really believe I'm yet to find problems that cannot be solved by discussing everyone's competing needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of people, teachers and leaders and managers, I think they sometimes don't have the trust to try out things, because they kind of think ahead at all the roadblocks that could appear, but don't trust the process enough to give the solutions a chance.
Mm-hmm. And Berta is she definitely knows what she's talking about, because actually, we don't, it's not always all about children. She's developed a new training, and, we are really proud at Beautiful Minds about this training. Berta, would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
You're taking now your revenge, putting me on the spot about something we haven't agreed to discuss. Yes, I think I'm really actually passionate about talking about developing teams and creating companies that and work environments that are, I'll use the word inclusive, because
Yeah.
it's the theme of our today's discussion.
Yeah, it's
Um,
inclusive leadership.
exactly,
Yeah.
inclusive leadership. But again, coming back to my initial comment, I personally, when I started leading my teams like that, I didn't think about inclusion. I thought about, these are the members of my team. How can I make their life more pleasant so that they enjoy coming to work?
Do you think that the fact that you are a mom to two neurodivergent children might have helped you in that path?
Um, Definitely has helped over the last few years. And if I think about it, my journey as a manager and as a mom have gone very much in parallel.
Mm-hmm.
I've opened my first business once my daughter was born, and since then kids were growing as the businesses
Mm-hmm.
were growing. I think at the beginning, a lot of things I've just done intuitively, and
Mm-hmm.
because I've had previous bad experiences of being managed, I started managing people in a way I would have liked to be managed.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then, things have changed, the teams have grown. We now have over 50 people in our teams. So, obviously there are challenges, and I'm not saying, we're the best company in the world, but I do think we do a lot of things right. And I think for me, the proof of that is the number of people who have been working with me for, 8, 10 years, and also what these people say about their quality of life in work and their
Mm-hmm.
work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'd love to do a podcast or an episode or a chat specifically on this topic. I think that's one of my interests that I love to geek around
Yeah,
about.
I think it's a big topic because we are often focused on children and, how to have a better childhood when it comes to, let's say, neurodivergent children and all that. But what happens with adults, and
Yeah,
what happens with late diagnosed adults, as myself, for
yeah,
example? It's so important. And I feel like, in both three companies, Sherpa Kids, Best Be Kids, and Beautiful Minds, we are leading with example. So it's not just a matter of talking about the theory, but we're also kind of like showing how to do it, and hey, navigating, all this journey, because we don't have all the answers. And I
no.
think it's a learning curve. And it's fair to say that we are not here, kind of like lecture everyone or anything.
Well, on that topic, I do. strongly, and this is just a personal belief, anyone who believes they're an expert in anything, I don't trust them. I might be wrong at times, but I'm mostly right. I don't think you can be an expert.
Mm.
Definitely not on things that are ever changing, like
Mm.
human being a human and living in a world that's becoming so complex
And it's changing
and is
every day.
changing.
Yes,
Yes,
constant change.
absolutely. And just coming back to touching on something that you've said, you know, one of the things I know you say in trainings, and I say the same, is when we when we care and when we teach and when we lead from a mindset that everyone does their best at every point, and that you know from a point of equity, believing in equity, it's not only the child, or it's not only the child that has it better and easier. It's also the teacher in the situation of the classroom. It's not only
Hmm.
the team, it's also the leader and the manager whose life is positively impacted. And I think if people would understand this, they'd be more open to change.
Hmm.
All this change, while it can be uncomfortable on a short and medium term, it brings benefits to everyone involved on a long term.
Hmm. So, for example, principals in a school.
My favorite people in the world. I actually I have all the respect for principals. My daughter wants to be a principal when she's older, so we're already reviewing kind of strategies of how you can do things for the benefit of a group and not just individuals. So yeah, as much as I was ironic, I actually think principals have a very tough job,
Hmm.
and I strongly believe that they are doing the best they can.
Hmm.
And we challenge them to be more open minded and to try some new things and see how they get on.
And not only principals, but also like the the educational system itself. Like we need to change, we need to evolve, we need to be more open minded and more flexible and creative. And I think when it comes to education, like I've never ever met an educator who wasn't creative
Yeah,
enough.
exactly.
It takes a lot of creativity and flexibility to
Yeah.
be an educator. So I think that yes, it's time to kind of like, you know, take a look at things differently and see how can we adapt more to, this the al- always changing world that we live in, right?
I'll put you on the spot, Sabrina, as well, as you're the former teacher. Tell me 5 things that you would do in a classroom of 28 to 30 kids in an Irish school right now that would make that classroom more inclusive.
I think that the first thing I will do is to have a chat with the whole group and create
The group
some,
of kids?
yes, the whole
Okay.
group of kids, and kind of like create let's call it norms or agreements of how are we gonna deal with the classroom itself, right? So what we think it will be allowed, what we think it won't be allowed, kind of like also take a look at the furniture and even just the chairs, the seating situation. um, get them involved because I think that is very important. They are truly the protagonist
Yeah.
of a classroom setting. So if you get them truly involved and truly like that if you let them know that they really care and they are the protagonist, they will be much more um, much more compromise into taking care of the place, taking care of their colleagues, and taking care of the whole experience. So that's kind of like the main thing I
Okay.
will do.
Now, I have to say, going through different schools, I have seen a lot of these kind of posters with our classroom rules, but a lot of them sound like we do not talk when the teacher talk, we walk, not run. And that makes
But
me wonder, is that what you mean?
my question here is, have these posters been co-created along with the children?
I think
That's my question.
co-created. I am wondering, yes, how much were the kids invited to really be creative and to think about their needs rather than typical rules that end up on a poster. I don't know.
I'm not talking about the typical rules. I'm talking about the kids being the protagonists. And hey, don't get me wrong, like when you really hand the microphone to the children, they are naturally inclusive. Children are naturally inclusive and respectful. So, if you give them the chance without being you, the one who is leading the conversation, but it's also about changing how you relate to children when you are a teacher. So we have to move away from the vertical model of teacher and children and come more into a horizontal one, whereas it's an educational setting where everyone, and I mean everyone, is learning from everyone. Like we're all learning together. So teacher also needs to kind of like present herself or himself with this open mind and ready to show vulnerability. I think that's the key.
Okay, so to sum up, we are like I'm taking two points out of the five I've asked you to give me. One is for the teacher to go in and explain to the children that it's more of a horizontal model. I'm going to use your term, but obviously it would be adapted to the language of the children. But come in and present this mind frame to the children and this approach of how the teacher will see the year going forward. And the second would be to create an agreement where the children's voice is really coming through.
Yes, definitely.
And it might not be a one-time 5 minutes exercise. It might be
no, it's something that you have to do in several sessions.
Yes.
It's not something, it's and it's something that it's flexible,
Yeah.
and you try it out, and maybe you allow them to see that it's not working, and then you change it.
Okay.
Because they need to like mistakes are there for a reason, and we need to think about the school as a gym. It's a gym where we are working on our muscles to learn about experience, to learn about frustration, to learn about speaking up, to learn about being respectful. Is our gym. The third thing I will do is allow to have like rolling snacks. So I will create a station where they will have...
I love this. I have to say I'm laughing because I have one of those kids who would so much benefit from this. And I'm also...
And I had it in my classroom when I was a teacher.
And I'm also an advocate about bringing chewing gum back to the classroom if the age allows it. But anyway.
But yeah, we had like, I will create kind of like a, water station, right? With a jug, and some, glasses there, some cups, not plastic, glass one.
Okay. That's the Montessori teacher in Sabrina. Yes. Okay.
And then have a few snacks, and it will be great to have them, Another thing that I also do with children when we co-create the rules is also give them different jobs. So what are you good at? Right? Okay, I'm good at organizing. Okay, so then you'll be the one in charge of organizing the layout of the room. Then I remember we had another child who was in charge of, setting up the schedule for the day, the visual schedule that we had, on a board. So then, some other children might be, in charge of, preparing the snacks, preparing the water. And hey, you can have the PA, the PA working on this. They are great on, creating fundraisings, and you can fundraise for healthy snacks. So then you have their compromise, you have their nutritional information, nutritional teaching, and they feel heard and seen.
Now, one of the questions I always talk, and we always come across this the rolling snack discussion. But the question I'm usually getting is, but what about the kids who might be bothered by smells or bothered by kids getting up and getting their snack or by the sound of the chewing? What would you say to that?
Well, obviously, being inclusive means taking all this into account. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't have all the answers. The children might not have all the answers, but as again, it's as I said before, it's a discussion. It's a try and error. So you can try it, and maybe I remember from my experience in my classroom at the very beginning, you could eat anywhere, but then all these issues started to come up. So we had a discussion, and we sat down all together and we were saying, okay, guys, this is not working. We have breadcrumbs all over the floor. We don't want to clean up after because, yes, we did have,
Yeah.
cleaning materials in the classroom and
Yeah.
they were in charge of cleaning as well.
Okay.
So I remember we had these big windows because it was an old building. So they decided, they had the ideas that you were allowed to eat at all times, but only in specific areas. And it was great. They came up with a solution.
Yeah. And I know, again, I keep giving the example of my daughter. She hates the sound of chewing. And in the same time, she told me that if she was allowed to snack in the classroom, she would not mind the chewing at all, or she could use her ear defenders because for her, getting that oral stimulation and that snack is more important than that. So
Yeah. It's
there's all
regulation. It's
it's
regulation.
and communication, and it's the mindset of trying it all.
Hmm.
So you're not off the hook. You gave me three, you have two more.
Okay. Ooh. Uh, well, let's recap. So we said the co-creating the
The
classroom
rules,
rules.
we had
The
the mindset of everyone learning from everyone and the teacher not positioning themselves on top or above
uh-huh.
the teachers. We had the rolling snacks.
Okay. Oh, yeah, a big one. Teaching them about how your brain works. That is a big one.
It's a big one. And I'm looking at your hands, and I think I have number five as well.
Oh yeah, the fidgeting tools. Well, this was kind of implied, of course, of course. And I would love for the kids to be the ones to choose what kind of.
And would they be allowed anytime, any fidget?
I don't know. Like, am I allowed to work with my glasses all the time?
I don't know. We might put some timers on when Sabrina's allowed to use her glasses.
If you think about it, like when it comes to your nervous systems, there's no choosing.
Yeah.
There's just being.
Yeah.
And that's the key. We have a new phrase for another batch.
Yes, that's it. And I think this kind of rounds up very nicely our conversation. We started with a topic and we geeked around a lot. There's so much more to say.
Oh, yes.
I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed it as well. We'd love to hear feedbacks or questions that we can answer.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to put a little link, a little poll to see if you guys would love to see more or to listen to more of these. And yeah,
Hey, we need to talk about our social media. Guys, you need to start following if you're not following us already.
Yes, absolutely. So we are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and our TikTok is just gonna get better because we have a new social media whiz who's gonna help us. It's
Someone younger than us.
yes, absolutely. um, beautifulminds.ie. If you search Beautiful Minds, spelled Beautiful minds.ie, you can find us. We're going to put the links in the description. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
And yeah, before we go, I would love to remind you about our lovely blog that it's available on our website. We share all kind of ideas, tools, and also just a little bit about our experience and how we feel. We are also on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. That'll help us. They'll help us a
Oh, I
lot.
forgot about YouTube. Yes, we have too many, and I'm
Yes.
probably getting too old. So we're gonna let our younger members of the team work on this,
Definitely.
and we hope to see you soon. Thanks all for listening.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.